All right, what's good, everybody? It's Divine Naga. I want to come and share some information because I got some confirmations or answers to a question that I have had. And I spoke to several people regarding this because for the last, let's say, maybe year, for the last year, I felt like I was in a holding phase. And I actually used those words when I was describing this feeling that I was having. So I knew that my mission would be changing and that I would have to redirect my focus and my energy towards helping to create New Earth. But before that was made completely evident to me, I expected to receive like guidance and promptings the way I had been in the past. I had always been nudged toward this or nudged toward that. It was. I don't think I recall feeling where I wasn't getting any type of unctions or any type of um, subtle nudges towards certain information or certain things to do, or waking up with a head full of ideas. I don't recall experiencing that since I've had my spiritual awakening. Um, However, being in this new energy, I felt like, let me see if I can do a good job of explaining or describing the feeling. The feeling felt like being in limbo. In limbo, and just waiting for something. And I remember asking us several months ago, probably back in August, I remember asking my highest guidance, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? Because what I was feeling is that with all the information that I had, that I knew up until this point, it had all been used in order to help individuals with their ascension. After the majority of the testing took place, that was no longer required. So it took me a minute to figure out that I was being told, it's not really necessary to teach any of the old information, like really get in depth with it, aside from, the detoxing, because what is happening now is apparently we don't have the same focus. Initially, when I was on mission, I was being told to help the ones who had woken up first, who would be the vanguards of New Earth, help them to purify their vessels quick, because it was an accelerated ascension protocol. So they were to get in. Apparently there would be some individuals who resonated with the information. They would hear some of the posts and the things that I would be saying and putting out there, and something in them would draw them to the information. And so they would jump on the protocol and do the protocol fast, because it took us almost 6 months, maybe 7 or 8 months. It took us to complete it. We had to be done by a certain time. So that was the goal of that process, of that particular part of the mission. But when I was told to redirect, I guess in my mind, maybe it didn't settle in my mind that redirect meant that there would be well, in my mind, no, let me correct that. In my mind, I thought that redirecting meant that there would be a whole new set of rules. Yes. So I'm pretty much waiting for the rules. I'm waiting for the unction, that feeling, that nudge, that inspiration that tells me, okay, now here are your orders. Here are your orders on your new job. And I wasn't hearing it. I was like, hello? Okay. Now, I wrote down what I should be doing as far as in my physical life for me personally. But as far as what I should be doing for the collective, I'm not sure where to go from here. Because I've been, again, been told what I needed to do, what the next thing was, what the next thing was for the last, I don't know how many years. So this was new for me. And I was stuck because I felt like I couldn't go back to what I was doing before, even though I had extensive knowledge on that. I have so much material that I want to put it out there, but I was getting the feeling that no, that's no longer required. That's no longer required of you. So then I'm sitting waiting going, okay, so I can't go back, but I don't have my orders to move forward. Like y'all haven't told me nothing. Like I'm still waiting here. And I sat like that for a long time, a long time, for some months. And it was the weirdest feeling because I felt like there was no safety net up under me. And again, I have had this conversation with several of my soul family members, and I was like, we kind of all in the same boat. I don't know what's going to happen next as far as the big picture, the great plan, the divine plan. Because I knew up to a certain point, like this is uncharted territory. So anyway, to make a long story short, so we can get to the graphic here, I really want to read through it. But to make a long story short, I really felt the stillness. And it felt odd because everything had been moving forward since my awakening. Everything, I knew that we were on a progression. But everything just stood still. I was just in a holding state, in a holding pattern. So I was asking, what is going on? Like what? So finally, it was put to me that this is new energy. This is new earth energy. So in new earth energy, you finally are able to create. And what happens is you have to create from the desire of your heart, from a pure heart. You have to create new earth. And so as they were telling me this, it took a minute for me to get, grab a hold of, exactly what they were trying to say. And it was, the path is not laid before you, but as you take a step, like in faith, as you step out in faith, the path begins to appear. So if you take one step, and so you have to take a step before you see the path, in other words. So I have to go out there leading with my heart and create from my heart what I think is appropriate. Well, I don't even want to say appropriate, but what I feel is my heart's desire. What is my heart's desire? I'm saying feel because I feel with my heart. We all do. We feel with our hearts. So it may be something that I wouldn't normally do, but if it feels good in my heart, then I'm being called to trust that, because that is going to be the foundation of the new earth, built from a pure heart with divine intentions for everybody. You get what I mean? So on my end, what it's looking like is something that had been pressed upon me and put in my heart years ago. I have been working toward this goal, and I have never had the proper. I just didn't have anything. Like if I had this, I didn't have that. If I had the right group of people, then I didn't have the know-how in order to get from point A to Z. I knew what the goal was, what the end goal was, but there was never a clear path to getting there, because a lot of the stuff required that you have tech knowledge, and I didn't have tech knowledge. There were things that I needed set up, especially excuse me, with all the censoring that was going on, it's like as soon as I find a platform and I find something that's going to work for me and we can start getting this work done, like coming together for humanity and beginning to build together and build righteously. I reject, this is for the record, I reject the movements and everything. Now I respect them. That's the difference. Respect and reject, two different things. I can respect it and still reject it. And the movements where it's like only, black people coming together and building and all that. I mean, and I'm pretty sure on the other end is people who are doing the same thing. They only want to build with the ones who look like them. But let me just say this real quick and then we'll get to the graphic. I don't allow any of that into my frequency. I don't, because I have realized that that does not matter. You better feel your way through this with your heart. You better recognize who you resonate with and what frequency other beings and individuals resonate on, because there are individuals that look exactly like you but are not you, and they have an agenda as well. They have an agenda to stop us, as a matter of fact, but they look just like us. So you're not going to be able to say, for our protection we'll only build, this is going to be just for the black community, because I can assure you that it's not, that's not going to turn out the way you think. Not with what's going on now. It's not going to turn out the way you think. As time gets more dire for individuals on the descendant timeline, as time gets more dire, you're going to see the real spirit behind people, so to speak. You're going to see what spirit they carry, because resources are going to dwindle down ever so slowly. People aren't paying attention, but I am. And resources are going to dwindle down. And when it comes down to an individual preserving themselves versus helping the group, you're going to see a lot of people who look like you turn on you. And that's just the facts. All right, so let's look at this graphic. Let's read it here. Now, this came across, it came into my into my frame of reference. I like to say that anytime my highest guidance answers a question, this is the type of information they send. When I'm not sure and they answer a question for me, it comes in this form, or somebody's mentioning something, having a conversation that answers the question that I asked them. So I asked the question recently. It's probably around the beginning of December when I asked, what is going on, because it had been so long. I know that I need to create it, but still the feeling of nothing moving, like everything feels like it's at a standstill. And I said that. So here's the answer. Let's get to it. So, timelines. What does stopping of time mean? In the most literal meaning, it means that each being remains on the current timeline they were already on when time stopped or paused. No other timeline is accessible within that pause period. When time is flowing at a realm level, each being moves between their own timelines. This is again while I could not see. I stopped being able to see probably around 2019. I stopped being able to see. And it was just black. I could not see, like in my mind's eye, I usually can see things happening. And it was just black. It was like looking down into a black tunnel. I could not see anything. And as I began to talk to other seers or people who can really see, I began to hear the same things. Everybody was saying we've been cut off. We can't see anything. And that was a protection, as a matter of fact. That was a protection One, and two, because it has not even been created yet. It hadn't been created yet. So nothing was set in stone. Everything was very fluid, meaning that, I guess like the butterfly effect, a butterfly can make a change, 1,000 miles away, to change the wind. So these were those types of situations where everything was just being created as individuals made choices and different decisions and certain actions. Everything was playing out in that now moment. Okay, so it says each being moves between their own timelines. These timeline changes occur both through our personal and realm level shifts. What is happening in this pause of time will be accessing specific timelines, so more than one, in which certain experiences must be lived to close out the distorted timelines. This is occurring to arrive at the convergence point of the one timeline. This point will then set us all on the path for the new earth without the distorted interference that has been imposed on our realm for a very long time, keeping us trapped within our own loops. After the pause is released, each individual timeline still matters, but no longer will these closed out, distorted timelines be able to converge onto the one timeline. Okay, so when they're speaking of the one timeline here, they're speaking of the ascending timeline, the one that is on path back to source, as opposed to the one they call the distorted timeline, which would be the descending timeline. Now, when I read that, I had to read that several times, but the vision that I was given to better understand or understand what this is likened to would be, I guess you would call it like, is it inertia? Somebody will correct me if that's the wrong terminology, but imagine a train, okay, a train or several trains going down the track. And is that a good example? Let's see. No, let's take one train, for example. One train with all these cars on the back. Okay? All these cars on the back. And then the train coming to a stopping point extremely fast, just stopping. Right? Now, imagine if that train didn't have the proper braking system or whatnot. All those cars behind it would bunch up right behind it. This is essentially what's taking place with the timelines, because all of these different timelines have been going on at the same time, but the one timeline that's in place and inevitable, that has no end, has to wait now for all the distorted timelines to catch up to it. So all of these trains are coming, and they're going to do the same thing. All of those cars on the back are going to catch up to the first train. So you have all these timelines going on simultaneously, and they're at a convergence point where all of them must come together, right? So again, the one timeline that was infinite is going to continue to progress on, while these others are cut off. It has to stop in order for all the others to catch up, so they could be dissolved. It's pretty much the visual that I was given. Now, somebody else may be able to interpret it better, but that was the image that I was given. Probably didn't do a good job of giving it to you, but that's what, once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, it's like all these other timelines coming and all these trains with cars. So several trains. Each train would be a timeline, but then you have all these individuals on this train, all these individual cars on the train. All of those are timelines within timelines. All right. So they all got to catch up in order. They all have to catch up to the main timeline, the ascending timeline. So that means if you are on the ascending timeline, if you pay attention, if you're on the ascending timeline, then you felt this lag. Let me get some water. I'm getting raspy. Sorry. So if you are on the ascending timeline, you felt this lag, you felt this limbo, this feeling of everything is just so still and standing, like we're in a holding pattern, waiting for something to happen. But the gag is, don't nothing happen until you make it happen. That's the gag. So, let me get back on track. Here. So, if you pay attention, if you notice, the people who are on the descending timeline are having the time of their life. They just moving and shaking, and it appears that way. Okay, for the most part. So they're just having a good old time. Everybody remember, because when I was in a holding pattern, what I was seeing through my portal, my 3D portal, which is my phone and my internet, what it looked like to me is people out here making reels because they're going to Bora Bora. They flying, they taking trips, they eating crab and lobster. I mean, they doing the absolute most. Everybody dancing and having a good old time. So anyway, so I'm sitting here looking, I'm like, wow, everything is really slow where I am. I never see my neighbors anymore. I see the new family that moved across the road. But that's it. I don't see anybody, but I don't go out my house either. But I know that the holding pattern is necessary. And I remember telling my son, while we weren't going outside, and I had to explain it to him. I believe in keeping it real for the most part when it comes down to stuff like this. But I told him, I said, we're not going out there until it's under new management. When we're told to go out, we will definitely go out. So that time is coming up now, because this holding pattern is the place that we need to be in order to await the cleansing. Because when that conversion happens, that's when the distorted timelines get removed, and then we can truly move forward with what it is we're creating for 5D New Earth. Okay, so did we finish this one? Let's see. Converge onto the one timeline. Okay, how is it experienced? Now this is my answer. Because I asked the question. It's amazing. I love how they speak to me, y'all. I just be touching my heart, and I smile so hard, because I be like, man, to have lived this entire lifetime that I'm in right now, physically experiencing, I have always felt lonely. Even though people were around me, I always felt a sadness, like not just lonely, but a sadness, like missing something. I don't care who I was around. I was always missing something. I could not figure it out. That's why I went to a lot of different religions and tried a lot of stuff out, because I was seeking. And when I connected to my highest guidance, and I know people, I've said this before, I know people be like, she always talk about her highest guidance, her divine spirits. I call them different names, but I've had people attack me saying, you talking to spirit guides and making it sound woo-woo. And I'm like, look, it's not my fault that you don't get it. But I fully am aware that this is my multi-dimensional selves, my greater being that I have managed to connect back to, that loves me unconditionally, and was so happy and ecstatic when I finally figured out this game, and I finally figured out that my higher being actually existed, the way it was put to me, and I do speak in plural, I speak as if it's they, because it truly is, because it's my multidimensional selves. I have met them. I feel like it's about 5, it may be more, or at least it's 5 that step up and speak. No woo-woo stuff. I don't get channels or nothing like that. This is pure. This is me that I'm speaking with. But my greater being was very patient as I figured out what all this was, and they were very good at giving me clues, and I was putting them together and I figured out. And when I first, like, it took me about 6 months to get past the initial shock of what I was being encountered with. I couldn't believe it, because all my life I felt like it was something else and I just could not put my finger on it. So when I was asking questions, and when I finally asked, and they told me that we are you are us, like we are you, it's the same thing. But because of our fallen state, they treat me almost like at first they treat you like a toddler, but they expect you to begin to grow up, because when you connect back, when you've done enough work to connect back and you can actually hear from them, they begin to expect more from you, just like a family member or a parent would, a loving, kind, compassionate family member would. It's like they take your hand, but after a certain point they let your hand go, and it's like, you should know this by now, you should get this by now, you should know this. So, but it's loving, it's not condescending, it's loving. And once you connect through the heart, and they speak directly to you through your heart, it's no challenge. They're not speaking in your head, they speak through your heart. And one word can give you a complete understanding of something when they put that word in your heart. But when I discovered them, it was surreal. It was surreal because I cried. I had never felt so welcome, so loved, so honored. I felt, and it was a feeling that I had never felt from anybody that I had connected with, not even my own mother. It was just an unconditional love and acceptance that I had never felt. I'm tearing up talking about it, so we're going to move on, but I just wanted y'all to understand that. So when you hear me talking about my divine spirits, it's not to brag or nothing like that. It's not on nothing like that. It's the way I honor them. It's the way I show just the appreciation for everything that they were doing to get my attention. To get my attention. I mean, I kept saying, is somebody trying to communicate with me? And because we don't know the rules of the game, we don't know the switch to flip in order to start playing for real here, So anyway, got off track, a little sentimental. Let me dry my eyes, because when I first felt it, I knew. I was sitting in my office and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, I felt like I said, for the first time, loved and accepted, but also the loving guidance. When you feel them nudging you in a certain direction, or you feel them doing something. I know people talk about, oh, I could have got in an accident and my guardian angel, and we hear about those things, yes. But I'm talking about your day-to-day things, and you have someone always there to guide you and tell you what step to make. And even if you make the wrong step, I never could go too far off the path that I was meant to be on. When I did stray, I was lovingly nudged back into place by little things that would happen out of my control. So, to know that you have that, it brings tears to my eyes that so many people on the planet live without that. I can't imagine. Oh, y'all serious. I cannot imagine now walking in this minefield, right? Because before you know what's going on, this is a minefield for source players and star seeds and light workers and way showers. It's a minefield. Everything is a trap. Everything is out to get you. Everything is meant to ensnare you, to keep you from reaching this point that I just described, right? So that's why I get so choked up, and I just be feeling for people, because I'm like, man, if you only knew, if they taught us this when we were young, if you knew that you have your own your GPS system here in the matrix, you just got to do certain things, because this beast and controller has cut off your channels of communication. So you got to do these body detoxes, heavy metal detoxes, because all the iron that they start giving to us as infants. Remember that video that's going out around with all that iron in the quote unquote iron fortified cereal, and we actually saw the iron shards. That's not because they love and care about the babies and want them to grow up strong. That's because they know that iron keeps you grounded, and communication channels blocked off. You can't hear nothing past heavy metal. Anyway, just a little tangent, but okay, so let's get to this part. How is it experienced? When time is stopped or paused, we all know, yet our individual states of awareness might not allow everyone to recognize when this happens. How most will experience this is through having experienced the feeling of being stuck. I did. That nothing is changing no matter how much you try. This is a, what is that word, y'all? This is a, let's zoom up. Okay, this is a paused life path, because the timeline you are on is continuing, but you have achieved a mission point on it to shift out of that particular timeline yet, because the realm isn't ready to move on. You continue to remain on it. And it's only because of your readiness to move to the next timeline that you know and thus feel stuck. Okay, so let's pause there for a second, because that's exactly, again, I probably didn't do a excellent job of explaining the visual that was dropped into my spirit, but that was essentially what I just read. I know that I was told that I had to redirect, like refocus my energy. I had to redirect. So that meant that the work that I was doing on the 3D timeline had come to an end, right? But what did it say? That particular timeline, okay, yet because the realm is not ready to move on yet. I continue to remain on it. And it's only because of my readiness to move to the next timeline that I know and thus feel stuck. So if I wasn't ready, like if I had not been told that my focus needed to shift, that now I was done with 3D, I would still be in 3D doing what I was doing, and I would not recognize that everything had stopped. I wouldn't recognize it, because it I guess in essence it would not have stopped for me. Okay? If that makes sense. So you remember when we're trying to understand a lot of these concepts, they're fairly new. So keep in mind that things that worked a certain way in 3D, in new energy, it's not going to work the same. So we're having to grasp our minds around different concepts. For example, one of the concepts that's so hard for us to grab a hold of, because it's all we've known in 3D, is the illusion of time. And that's the thing. It's like there is no time, but in 3D, we do everything according to the clock, according to time. So for a higher being to come and tell you that everything is happening. Like there is no past and no future. Everything is happening in the right now moment. Everything is happening simultaneously. And it's hard for us to imagine that because we've only been taught that time is linear. It moves in a linear motion. It progresses. So then you end up having things that happen behind where you are now and things that will happen in the future of where you are now, but that does not exist. So it's hard to even process that concept. It's hard. So this is that type of concept that the realm is not ready to move forward yet because it happens at a certain time. But my particular train, my timeline, has come to an end. The new timeline has to be created. So in other words, we all got to get to the airport, right? When we get to the airport, everybody's sitting at the airport. We just standing. I used to explain it that way too. We standing at the airport waiting to move forward. Some people gonna take an Uber back to 3D, and some of us are waiting for our connecting flight so we can continue on. And some of us are getting on new flights and going in a completely different direction. So that is essentially where we are. All these different trains are getting to the station at different times. But we have to wait until the realm is ready. And once everybody catch up, the ones who not going to be dissolved. They're going back to 3D. And the ones who are ready will move forward. Okay? So you continue to remain on it. And it's only because of your readiness to move to the next timeline that you know and thus feel stuck. We are literally stuck on a timeline. This can occur for years. I don't think we're going to be here for years. I think the end of 2023 is going to be the snapping point. It's supposed to be. And I posted on it because there was some information that had come out about the... Oh, I can't think of what the name of it was, but the bifurcation. I'm sorry, the bifurcation where the final split takes place. And so this is what this individual situation, the situation that we're in, that we're experiencing right now, is that we're waiting for the shoe to drop, for the snap to occur. All right. Then when the pause is released, we experience things like time flying, events in our life passing quickly, and we say things like, wow, this year went past so fast. That's because it did. It went by in a flash. That flash point being the catch-up of the timelines as we jumped onto another timeline after the pause in time. Okay, so I myself have not experienced that. During this holding period, I haven't experienced that, but I have experienced it in the past. I think a lot of us have as well. I think time was going by fast in 2021. In 2021, time was going by really fast. It seemed like I wake up and go back to sleep. Wake up and go back to sleep. The days was merging. I didn't know what days were what. 2022 is when things began to slow down and kind of just stagnate. It felt like a stagnation. But we had a timeline. We had a lag. What was the word she used? A pause, a timeline pause. So that is exactly what I felt like. And we have been like shifting small little shifts into place. And everybody don't feel it. Everybody don't feel it. I don't feel it all the time, but I am recognizing that something's taking place. But anyway, with that being said, I wanted to bring that because when I read it, it was an answer specific to my question. It was specific. That was specific to what I asked, and it explained it to a T of what was happening and why I was feeling like I was in limbo. I couldn't move forward and I couldn't go back. It's like the path that led me here has been wiped away. I can't even go back if I wanted to. And the people, I'm assuming that the people who are either gonna stay at the airport or end up going back on the descending timeline to repeat some lessons, I'm feeling like those individuals are getting further and further and further away. It's like I have family members that I just no longer hear from as much, and it's like they're just fading away. People are slowly fading away. So in this play, you know how you have certain individuals play parts in certain parts of the play, but then when you close out that part, you move on to something new, and it's a whole new cast of characters. We still in the same script, we still in the same book, but now we shifting. It's like we're going to a whole, not just a whole new chapter, but like a whole new segment of the book, because some of the same players that had roles in your 3D life may not necessarily have those same roles in your 5D New Earth energy, because some of those energies couldn't move forward with you because they have things that they need to do. So we're getting ready to do something completely different. The whole set on the play, on the world stage, is getting ready to change for us. But we get to change it. That's the fun part about this part of the book, of our script, is that we get to create it now. Instead of us having to follow the script, we get to create our script now. So listen, just some tips in case you didn't find out yet, in case you didn't know. You can write it out in present if you can. Just write something every day. I don't know why diaries went away, but just write something every day of how your world looks in 5D, even if you're not seeing it in your physical reality. I want you to write as if you are seeing it and visualize it in your mind's eye, and write that out and read it back. And the next day, add a little bit more to it. What else could you come up with? What else would 5D look like for humanity? What would it look like for you in your personal life? And then push it outwards. And write that. And believe that when you write that and you speak that out your mouth, that you're speaking those magical words into the ethers, and you're giving commands to the ether as what it is you want to see. Because remember, we're in new manifestation energy. So it works now. Listen, don't do this if your heart not pure. And if your heart not pure, work on it, okay? That's not a judgment. If your heart is not pure yet, work on it. And you know the best way to work on having a pure heart is to be compassionate and do the compassionate things. Staying in a higher heart frequency all the time, doing higher heart actions. Take your mind out of it. Stop thinking so much. That's one of the things that I noticed about a lot of us when we're doing our work. We overthink. We overanalyze a lot of times. And this is one of the reasons too why you got to get alone. Like when it's time for you to seriously turn inward, you have to get alone. Because just the voices and the energy of other people, especially if they're not doing the work, the voices and the energy of other people will prevent you from making the proper connections and getting the information that you need to get, and just turning inward. You have to get by yourself, because all of that stuff would be a distraction. Everything would be a distraction, and you want to be able to clear channels so that you can hear from your greater being. You don't want influences. You don't want to tell anybody. When you write your new scripts out, you don't want to tell anybody anything because you don't want anybody. I mean, people with their best intentions will throw dirt on your vision. So don't tell anybody what it looks like, because people will say stuff like, "Oh, I want that too. I want that too." And there's nothing wrong with that, but just understand, when we dealing with energies, manifestation energies, you need all your energy for your manifestation. And if people do not have the same ability to manifest that you have, guess what? They detract from yours. That's how powerful thoughts are. That's how powerful thoughts are. And if you have the wrong people around you because you have not done a spiritual assessment, if you have the wrong people around you, now listen, this is going to be something crazy for you to think about, but imagine narcissists, right? Who come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Very hard to detect because they are the original shapeshifter. But just imagine a narcissist that don't have source. They're not plugged in. But if they could just get a little spark off of you, it'll light them up for a few seconds. But then they go back to darken and they need some more. They need some more. They need some more because they are not plugged into the power source where there's a constant flow, right? So every little thing you say, little thing you do, they're going to jump on it because they got to steal some of your light. They got to steal some of your joy. They got to steal some of your inventions. They have to steal some of your ideas. They have to steal some of your, whatever your heart's desire. They don't have a heart's desire. They just have covetousness and envy and jealousy and hoard. They want to keep and gather and keep and gather. Remember, these are the takers. So they can't do this for themselves. So anytime you have a novel idea, you have something that you want to do, they'll jump on it. Oh, I want to do that too. I want to do that too. But remember, it's not heart-based. It's nothing wrong with somebody jumping on the mission with you and jumping on the idea and collaborating and doing something from a heart place. But when they do it, it's from an ego place. And you can feel the difference. Anyway, I don't even know where that came from. But let me wrap it up because I start rambling. But did I finish telling you? Visualize it in your mind's eye. Isolate. Keep people from around you. Do not tell people what you're trying to manifest or what you're visualizing, how you change your script. That's not their business. This top secret, sacred work. And when you get into conversations, and people love to pull you into conversations, and they love to pull at your energy when you're trying to do this work. It takes energy to manifest. It does. It takes energy. And you need to be able to get quiet enough to where you can harness that and you can focus it. You can laser focus your energy toward creation. And when you have people around you, and it don't necessarily mean that they're nefarious like the narcissist. Not necessarily. I'm just saying other energy is going to detract. When people talk to me, they're detracting my energy because they're needing my attention. They need me to pay attention to them. So I understand what that is. So when it's time for me to manifest something, I cut off all communication to a certain degree. Right? It's only just, it has to be absolutely necessary. So this inward work that we're doing is it's necessary right now for the ones who are moving forward. You should be doing your work. Everybody else going to go back to distraction. Because, again, when your body is pure, when your body is cleansed, detox, right? Your blood, your DNA starts to repair. Your blood starts to repair. Cellular memories cleansed out. You become lighter. You become a conduit for information. And at that point, you become a conduit for inspiration. Inspiration. Creators creating from your heart, because it starts with an inspiration to do something from your passion, from your heart. And that's what these cities of light, and when all of our communities finally do come together, they will be ran and protected by that same energy that I just mentioned, that emits from the heart. Because when your heart frequency is high, it stretches out over 100 feet in front of you. So imagine all these beings with this. That's going to be your bubble of protection. That's why, not to go on another, no, I'm not going to talk about that. That's why I'm wrapping it up. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, because I surely did. And that will explain, because I have talked to other people who are on the ascending path who felt the same thing. The ones who not on the ascending path, they haven't noticed that, because again, that's not their reality. They haven't noticed it yet. They're still moving. They're still trying to get here, because once they do, then everything will be cut off for them. All right. So I don't have a fancy outro or dismount. So with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed this. Peace, love, and bliss.